Hello, Ashlanders. There's a new podcast in town, The Bad Girl's Guide to Town Government. It's of the people, for the people, and by the people. It's an opportunity for citizens to express themselves on their own terms. It takes place right here at WACA-TV in the Information Parlor. Today's conversation is co-hosted by Kate Jerzik and Julie Nardone. And before we get into today's absolutely super duper ripping topics, Kate, do you want to tell us about Upbeat Corner?
Yeah, and I also do want to remind and introduce our honorary co-host, Jim Hanna.
Jim, I am sorry.
So the Bark Park in Ashland should be opening in early June, and I think it's an exciting amenity addition to Ashland. And even better, I think, is that this was a citizen idea that, like a lot of things, it just takes time, right? So citizens group for years, and to get it across the finish line, there was a partnership with town government. So exciting news. And
just a brief, I Googled first dog park, and it was in 1863 in Germany, and it was called Hudenplatz. And then the first one in the United States was in Berkeley, California in 1978, so almost over 100 years later. Okay, so the inspirational quote, do you want to read that? And then I'll talk about the next thing.
I would love to. From Benjamin Franklin, it is the first responsibility of every citizen to question authority. And I think that fits with overall Bad Girl's Guide to Town Government philosophy, and again, honoring Jim Hanna, that we sometimes, if you're questioning, there's a tendency to make that negative by some people, both citizens, both government people, and we've learned that we can ignore that. Ben Franklin said it's okay.
Yeah, that is such a classic observation, that if you're not agreeing with the powers that be, you're negative. Okay, so as everyone knows who's been listening to this, I watch a ton of films. So this last week, I watched Enemy of the People, and it's got Steve McQueen, who I totally love. It's a little bit of a different role for him, but it's still the same kind of role. He plays Dr. Stockman in a small town that has these, they're like spas. I think they're almost like medicinal spas. So the people come there, they dip in the spas, and they feel better. So he had a hunch, and he discovered that the spas were actually being contaminated by a tannery beyond them. So he told everybody, we can't keep doing this. These people are going to be hurt by this toxic stuff in the water. I guess it was a bacteria. And at first they were with him, but then they turned on him, and they started calling him an enemy of the people. And his brother was the mayor, who was upset because it was going to hurt the economic development aspect of the town. So they ended up, throwing rocks through his house and everything. But he decided in the end to stay. They were going to leave his family, and they just decided to stay and face it. And it's just, if you've ever seen Aaron Brockovich or Silkwood, it's just that kind of movie with someone standing up for doing the right thing. Which leads into, I think, very nicely this week's topics, which revolve around responsible government, defining priorities, reintroducing the idea of public service, understanding bond ratings, and questioning contradictory messages. There's another one, but I don't think we're going to get to it. So, defining priorities, we're handed a budget, we don't really have a say in it all, and wouldn't it be better to somehow have a process where the people are included and say, well, maybe I want that, or maybe I want this.
Well, I think that's right. Like Framingham put that on the ballot to have a citizens component for budgeting. And I really actually think it's kind of surprising, if you are a public servant, that you have to get somehow the public. Now, I know people will say, well, the select board represents us and school committee represents us, but that ultimately it's not practical in a town of our size to have 18,000 people. Right. So you do have to do better and reach out to the public.
Yeah, and so I've been noticing I've been going to visit some other town Facebook pages, And not all of them, but a lot of them have been voting down their overrides. But it's what they're saying after that is just so related to this. They're all saying, hey, our town manager reports to the select board doesn't return to the town manager, or why aren't we following our charter, or how did things pass town meeting and fail at the ballot when people have gotten up and said you're not listening to us? So there definitely seems to be, and we talked about this, I don't know what month it was, an absolute listening problem. Oh, and while I'm at it, we were supposed to have a listening tour about the override, and there were 2 public forums for people to get up and speak. I went to the first one. The second one was supposed to be in April, and I'm waiting for it, and no one said anything. So then I had to do a couple of emails, and I found out it had been canceled. So, this whole time they were saying, they did everything without us listening to us, and then promised us a listen, and then cancel a listen. So, I don't know. I think it's just horrible. What do you think?
Well, I think the defining priorities, when I've seen positions being added. In fact, with this override, I believe we're adding more positions. It doesn't make it really a credible argument about budget, and I think as a community, we should be able to have broader discussions about if we want to add positions, if we think we don't have enough money already to run the government. And I think there's a lot of priorities that maybe really need to be looked into. Another town, I thought someone did a great job writing about, and it was really kind of heartfelt, saying, I admit I wasn't really paying attention, but clearly had suggestions of 5 things to look at before you really get down the road of saying, I have to cut a firefighter. And it was something like non-essential discretionary spending, travel, conferences, training, consultation not tied to critical operations, number 1. We've been spending money on those things, right? I think you have some public records on those.
Do you want me to say that? Okay.
I think so.
Back on the subject of listening, during this override, they had all these meetings where they weren't listening to anybody, but there was a promise that they would eventually start listening. So there were 2 public override forums scheduled. I went to the first one. They said there'd be another one in April, and I'm waiting, and then I find out that it's been canceled. And I'm like, really? You're canceling the public forum on the override? And apparently they've been taking them into the offline somewhere. I don't know. I just think that's a problem. So yeah, we were talking about training, and I think training.
So some of the things I imagine that would come out if we got to sit down as a community, right? And this is another town, did a very thoughtful of 5 things to look at before you seriously get into cutting someone's job. Because I think all of us would not want that, but we also have to realize budgets have to work. If you aren't making enough money, do you add another streaming service at your house?
Mm-hmm. I don't.
Right. So the first cut, she was saying, is non-essential and discretionary spending such as travel, conferences, training, consultation not tied to critical operations. So I think you have some examples, right?
I do. I did a public records request on the town manager's budget because it's one I've never looked at, and it's one of the large. It's a large one. So I noticed that it was in March, we paid $5,600 for the College of Charlestown Athenia webinar. And yes, I saw it right on the website. He went to that. And I guess my question is, if we're being told we don't have any money, I'm confused why we would prioritize something.
Adding a streaming service to your household budget when you can't afford it, yeah.
And then I also saw, they keep talking about this staffing survey, and what I see in here is 2 charges. one for 15,000 in 2024, and then one a year later, actually it's a year later, for 52,000. What's that together? $67,000 for a staffing survey that we still don't have. And it seems like the selectmen can't get it. So that's two examples right there. And I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem like belt tightening to me.
It doesn't seem like belt tightening, and I think there's probably some value in comparing us to other communities, but it's difficult, right? Because Ashland was a solidly working class community, and then a lot of new people brought our wealth dramatically up. We found out recently that we're actually lower, right?
Getting poorer.
Yeah, and so those are factors that, how do you compare that with another town, right? We have a certain budget to work with, and I feel like that should be the number one priority, is figure out how to work with that budget.
Yeah, I mean, we've been, I want to call it upscaling the salaries to towns around us, giving some rather large raises on top of, you'll get like a 3.5 and then 16,000 or 8,000 or 5,000 or whatever it is. And again, I don't know why these decisions are being made if we're being told we need to tighten our belts. That seems like the absolute opposite.
Well, and I think that if you're ready to move on, rolls into
Yeah.
the topic, reintroducing the idea of public service.
Yes. I have an example. We do these AAA bonds, which is actually the next topic, but I was just trying to get an idea of what we pay for it. And I tried for 4 days, different times of the day, to get, including today, to get in touch with the accounting department, and no one answered the phone. And then I was told that one of the people was working remotely, but there are two of them. So I guess my problem is you're like a public-facing organization, and here I am trying to get this information, and I can't even get anyone to pick up the phone. You know, then I was told, oh, just email, but I actually had emailed about a different topic that I didn't get a response from. And I know people tell me that they email or whatever, and they don't hear from people. So how do we fix that?
So I think it is an honorable vocation, and I think that people mostly in public service, I have high regard for, do their job in service.
Mm-hmm.
I think where I have a difference is how did the salaries get to be market rate, meaning market like compared with private sector, yet the benefits are beyond. And I feel like on these larger budget to be sustainable, we have to have discussions like, maybe you get to choose, I get a market rate salary, and I do a 401k like the market,
Yeah.
or I choose to get that lower salary in the security of pensions and benefits.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, you really cannot have private sector salaries and public sector benefits, because I think that's at the root of a lot of these alleged problems that towns are having. They're just really out of control and way off topic of what they're supposed to be doing. I sometimes too, I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe it's because I ask a lot of questions, but not all the time, sometimes it's awesome, but that we're somehow a pain. And it's like, I think if you want to work with the public, you got to learn to love the public, right? Or like them or respect, I don't know.
So I feel like at town hall that we are, but I feel like that there might be, it might tie back into that, we're saying our first responsibility is to question authority, but that does come when you do question. It's not about, there's no value judgment. I want information, but it's perceived as some kind of attack or threat, right?
Negative.
And so,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that would be nice to have a conversation with town hall about
Yeah.
that perspective, but as far as like, worth ethic and value, I feel like that is great in it. I think the shift lies in that how you perceive the questioning, right? It's no one saying you're doing a bad job, it's information, right? And the website would be a good place to make it easier to get information. Put more on the website, which means the public would not have to ask as much.
Right, yeah, I mean, I've had this conversation with staff about, you can make your jobs easier if we're just put the information on the website so people don't have to ask. And I also want to talk about this notion of curiosity because, I mean, I was an extraordinarily curious child, as a lot of children are, and I managed to take mine with me, which I think's good. And I think the whole notion of education is about cultivating curiosity, but then I feel like when I'm curious, it is not well received. So I feel like, and that's actually one of our other topics, questioning contradictory messages, that we're not there yet. But it's like, you say education is important, and then people exhibit those things, and then they're basically told, shut up and sit down. So I think we need to work on that, and we haven't been doing that. See, these topics are all they're all like related to each other. So let's move on to the next one, and we'll just keep going. So this one's like super duper exciting. It's called Understanding Bond Ratings, because you hear a lot of towns, especially our town, we got a AAA bond rating. It means everything's great. Finances are awesome. The world's just incredible because of this rating. So, there is a group called Strong Towns. It's called Strong Towns, and I found this really amazing article, and we've both read it, and it's called "Bond Ratings Are for Investors, Not Taxpayers."
Yeah, I think that's like the number one thing to remember.
Yeah.
And I think it's fine that we publicize we're AAA. I've noticed that Ashland, it could be almost copy paste from any town. They
Yeah.
all publicize it well.
Right.
Look at what we did. One thing that's interesting is the actual rating metric.
Yeah.
I've found published for other towns. I found an old one on Ashland website, but the most current I
Oh,
didn't.
yes.
And those are pretty telling, right?
Yeah.
It's only 3 or 4 pages, but, you know, it does, maybe if you read between the lines, doesn't say everything's perfectly rosy either. So that goes back with the curiosity. There's nothing wrong with us touting that we have a AAA bond rating. I think there is saying like that's in danger over if we don't tax ourselves more. That's
Yeah.
the difference, right?
Right, because we have a surplus every year. They say we have a deficit, but we actually have a surplus. And it's, anywhere from 1.5 million to 2.5 million. And as the budget gets bigger, it gets bigger. And I brought this up at one of these early override meetings, and I was told, well, we do have a surplus, but we have to keep it for the bond rating. So in my mind, that's like nonsensical.
Well, Julie, and then just to talk real numbers, I
Yeah.
mean, we actually, when you talk OPEB, that's like high 48, 50,
Yeah.
over $50 million. We are not in great shape financially,
Yeah.
right? So you're taking a slice of it to we say we're in good shape and we get this bond rating, AAA, and we have a surplus, but we really don't. I mean, as a town, there's some serious issues, right, to look at.
Yeah, and what was interesting about the, can I see this?
Yeah.
This is the letter, it's called the Ratings Direct, and it was about Ashland. It said that we had a high debt load per capita.
Yeah.
And I mean, above and beyond this override, there's like 14, 15 million of projects they want. And if you read in here, they started taking roofs I don't know, maybe around 2014. Those used to be paid for out of the operating budget. Those became debt exclusions, and even those feasibility studies. So we've been taking on, saying we haven't been raising taxes is ludicrous, because we've been taking on more in these debt exclusions. I went to the state DR website. You can see all the towns and their ratings. 75 towns have AAA. 89 towns have AA plus, and then 43 towns have AA. So I added that up. It's like 206 out of 351 towns are in the A's. So isn't that more than half? 206 into 351. Mm-hmm. That's more than half of the towns.
Well, and this is an example of more information's better. If you say it's going to cost us more in bond, like put some real facts. What are we bonding and how much is it going to cost?
Yeah.
So if we drop to what would make us drop to a AA, right? I don't know.
And I mean,
and if we did, what is the interest rate difference?
Yes.
And again, this is very clear. This is for investors, not taxpayers,
Yes,
not residents.
Exactly. The whole purpose of the AAA bond profile is, are you going to pay the investors back? It doesn't say anything about us, our quality of life, or none of that. It's totally reduced to, can you pay it back? This segues into the next one. Well, it's related. Questioning contradictory messages. So, and I think we talked about this a little bit last time. We have been hearing nonstop, we need new growth, we need new growth, we need new growth. You have been, it's on one of these papers. We've been embracing slow growth or anti-growth, which I don't know how anyone can say that. We're one of the most densest towns in Metro West. So then we were told more recently, well, you need an override because there's been so much growth that they need it for the services. Okay, you told us that we didn't have growth. Then you told us we needed growth for your budget. Now we're told you need an override because the growth is taxing the budget. Did you want to say something before I read this?
Well, a certain amount of residents have been for decades mentioning that the
Cost of services, yeah.
So the goal would be to increase commercial who does not use as much in services as residential.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this community. In fact, that was part of having an economic development person, but I don't think we've been provided data to say, does that work and have we done? And I don't know if we've had are there any other ideas that we're missing about getting more commercial, right? Like, probably, because I haven't seen, I don't know, someone mentioned like a community had their own fiber optic network that then they could charge other people to use. Now, maybe that's not practical in Ashland.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out
Right.
real examples that other communities have used to generate revenue. So,
And we're always talking about generating our revenue instead of looking at, I believe we get the budget and we just add on the new stuff, which means all these it's like stratified layers of things that you might not be doing anymore, but they're still in there.
so can I also, I
Sure.
think this goes under contradictory messages saying, we're bound by 2.5 and all these, I think the latest message was like Keefe Tech and insurance
Keefe Tech.
and one other thing, eats up a huge portion of that. But that I have not seen anything that accounts for, we also have increased assessment. So our budget has been going up more than 2.5%. And
Yeah.
I would just feel like having that real information would be super helpful. It feels like I'm not sure why we get partial, and I think it's probably just a blind spot of people, again, doing their best to say, I need more money.
Yeah.
But it isn't your best when you have partial information, and I don't think it's your best when you're actually adding positions, but not really many ways, I think, could be if you talk to the community, belt tightening.
Yeah, I think you've really hit on something that's important. As far as I'm concerned, all I've been given is a plate of abstractions. I don't know what's on this plate. I don't know what I'm supposed to be eating. Is it meat? Is it vegetables? Is it lettuce? I mean, I don't know, because everything's an abstraction. And I want to talk about Keefe Tech, because we've been told there was a graph with 4 little thingies on it, little graphics on the graphic. And one of them was the Keefe Tech, this year it's 1 point, I don't know, it was 378 or 380,000 more than last year. And oh my God, so I went back, I just happened to have this stuff in my drawer. And I was going through some stuff and I pulled something out and I was like, Keefe Tech was 1.7 million in 2014. This current amount is less than that. So, but that's already been baked into the budget back in 2014. So I think to say that this Keefe Tech and making weird comments about it, like, oh, we should cut them and give the money to the other schools, I don't get it. But it's like we're being told that this is such a big thing when it's already in the budget. And if you look at the budget, there are included debt, which is inside and not debt excluded. That came down, I think it was 330,000, 340,000. So we're not being told that the budget came actually down. It's in those parentheses. So this whole thing about Keefe Tech is just this weird, windy stuff blowing around. It just doesn't even mean anything.
So, and I think that goes along with that, I think, mentioned it before, partial information, like there was a budget kind of booklet published saying it was independent, and it was published by the town manager, which I would not call independent. Now, I agree there was citations for independent data in the report,
Yeah.
but I don't think most people would call a report by the town manager independent. Do you?
And I don't. I just think, like, for the reason we started this show, we basically get one perspective, and we're told this is the gospel truth, and anyone who doesn't embrace this as the gospel truth is just kidding themselves. And that's really not what democracy is all about. It's about, I think we have a duty to be questioning. Your civic duty is to question your government for yourself, for everyone else, and get everybody engaged. There's one thing I want to read here. So, based on what we were just talking, our manager writes a lot of articles about his experience as a manager, and there was one about Ashland's AAA rating, how strategic financial management continues to earn S&P's highest confidence despite recent challenges. So I'm reading through it, and it's all about how great the AAA is. But then I get to this part, and it's called number 3, create a narrative. This is a lesson I learned from Lynch and Moses, and it's the key focus of our rating calls. So first of all, it sounds like they're having calls, and I don't even know they're having calls. But anyways, I'm just going to read this. As a specific example, talking about a $2 million deficit, and this was in September 2025, after the talk for the override started like 8 months earlier. As a specific example, talking about a $2 million deficit seems a lot less scary when you potentially have over $4 million in additional tax revenue coming from new developments, including 3 40B projects. And that was one of the storylines of our most recent call. Okay, so we are being told we need an override because we don't have enough new growth, when right here it says we have potentially 4 million. They're only putting 900,000 in the budget, and a couple of people, not only just me, other people have gotten up and said, we've got these apartment buildings all over the town coming in that have been approved. So I'm really, to me, this is the most glaring contradictory message. We've got apartments, we've seen them, we know they're coming, but we're being told we need an override. So are we supposed to do an override and then all of a sudden, whoops, there's another 2-3 million? So then it's not like we're going to be, it's be really hard to go back and get an underride. So, oops, sorry. Oh, I can't always turn that thing off. All right, so is there anything you want to say? We're kind of at the end of our time here. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I'm sticking with Ben Franklin, first responsibility to question authority, and we'll keep that up and asking residents to do the same.
Yes, and we want to thank everyone that listens to the podcast. And we had a very nice article in the local pages on page 17, and the painting was in there. And if anyone wants to contact us, we're at badgirlsashline@gmail.com. So we will see you in a month. Thank you.